So we love questions from the audience. So you can start commenting your questions now, or you can also add them as we go. I'll be right back on to welcome our guests to the show. Thanks for meeting us for coffee. Hi everyone, we are live from Manifest. I can say that for the first time because we've been doing a lot of podcasts. We're getting them out quick, but they're technically not live. We're just recording. So Andrew, thanks for being brave enough to be my first live podcast.
Yes, thanks for having me. Excited to join you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I would love for you to introduce yourself a little bit more. Most people who listen at least know of me or have seen me, a talking head on their LinkedIn feed at some point, but I'd love to know more about who you are, what you do, and just all the things.
Yeah, so name's Andrew Verboncouer. I am the partner and CEO at Intermode. My background is in business and really self-taught design, and so Intermode started maybe, I guess, where should I start with that? Yeah, so my background's in design, have been in product, primarily B2B SaaS products, platforms, things like that, really since the late 2000s. Okay. And so I've been in tech and startups, and our parent company, Headway, we started that in about 2015. And really in 2018, we started doing more and more in logistics. And so like Breakthrough Fuel was our first big client. Okay. We're based in Green Bay. And so that's where we really started getting into logistics. And then this past year, we started doubling down into this space, really seeing an opportunity for us to accelerate. And so where my background comes in is, I've led a lot of those product, a lot of those design engagements for, things like Breakthrough, things like Trimble, KBX, some of our partners over the years. And so really combining the passion of user-centered design with meeting business goals. And so we try to bring that rigor and into the space.
Awesome. So are you a Green Bay fan?
I am. You have to be.
You have to be?
This is live, so no. I am a Green Bay fan, yes.
I'm a Chiefs fan, and that's not going well for me at the moment. So, and you actually, you had a football career at some point?
I did, yeah. I played in college, and then I also played 2 years of pro indoor in Green Bay.
Okay.
For an IFL team, and so had big NFL dreams and put those away in 2014. So it's been a minute.
Yeah, and stepped into the awesome world of technology and then logistics kind of tech space too. Okay, can you tell me a little bit more about what specifically Intermode does, and maybe kind of like the recent kind of growth and traction that you guys have? And I think that's going to kind of set the stage for some of the things we're going to talk about, because I want to dive into a few more high-level topics with you.
Yeah, so we're basically like an innovation team for hire. So we work with a lot of venture studios. We work with a lot of corporate innovation teams at like Procter & Gamble, Trimble, things like that to bring new products. So all the new software and things that you see here to life. And so we kind of partner on both ends of the spectrum. That's early stage founders. Maybe they've had a second exit or well backed. We'll help bring their first product to market and kind of help them grow their team and hire and really just be a good partner there. And for innovation teams, really almost like a SEAL team that drops in with a business goal, an objective, help them get traction in the early market and figure out really what types of software should exist and why and all, all that.
That should exist. I like that. Which one should exist? So that's where I want to spend some time talking about today. Somebody just asked me while I was eating lunch a little bit ago, like, hey, what are some of the trends that you've seen consistently through the podcast and just talking with people? And I said AI being one of them, but not even just AI, just technology and automation in general.
Yeah.
Like, everyone's talking about how do we start automating manual processes? How are we creating tools that do that? Are we blending in AI with those tools or not? And then I think in logistics and supply chain, if there's something that people say, this isn't efficient, we want to look for a solution that involves technology now. So what are you seeing just as a very, I guess, broad or micro, however you want to unpack that, but what have you been seeing and what type of tools and stuff are coming on the market to address inefficiencies, specifically in like the supply chain and logistics space?
I think the biggest thing I hear as we do interviews and have conversations and, serve the market, data, right? Everyone likes the idea of AI, and there's a ton of AI companies here, there's a ton of data companies here. The reality is a lot of their data is so separate and distributed because of all the individual point solutions along the entire supply chain, from raw materials manufacturing all the way through transportation to final mile and loop returns and things like that, where really there's no true digital twin of your data.
Okay.
Because there's so much fragmentation, and so a lot of the trends that we see are, iPaaS solutions, whether it's EDI or API or things like that to try and connect. But there's still so many silos within that. To get a true picture, you almost need, a full ERP. You need everything in one solution, but it doesn't really do all those nuanced things well. It's hard to kind of adopt a NetSuite or SAP or things like that, and also be innovative and thinking about customer experience and all that. So I've seen a lot of people try and use, source of data, but then also kind of innovate their own point solutions that are tapping into that data source, so they can control the experience for their customers and for their team.
So we kind of, like I just said, we were wanting to address inefficiencies and create tools for that. And something that's been championed the last several years has been that more boutique service. Instead of, I automate everything within your supply chain, I'm the one-stop shop for everything.
Yep.
We got really comfortable with the idea of creating some type of product, some type of technology that's really good at like one thing. And there's always data involved in that, right? When we're moving things around, they have data stored in that, or they're putting it into certain places. So we have a lot of tools that have come out to do that now. But I think I can kind of see what you're saying, where we have so many different things plugging in, and now maybe the challenge is not having data, it's letting data communicate with other types of data and bringing kind of connectivity across really everything that you're doing,
right?
Not just one part. What do you kind of think about?
Yeah, I think a lot of that's I would agree with all of that. I think, taking data and moving it from one place to another is not a job anyone likes doing. And even, with the new tools for AI and Zapier and Make and all the automation tools, you still don't have all the connectors you need, especially in niche markets. In more public markets, B2C type stuff you do with Asana and ways of working and all of those, but you still see the fragmentation. And I think the other thing, not just the data, is bad data. So not being able to govern data across your services. So, hey, it's connected, but in some systems that aren't, it actually means a different thing. Like if you're doing routing, like Baton R in one place is Baton Rouge in a different. How do you govern that data and actually make sure all your systems are in sync? Because if you're trying to fire automations and AI off of that, you can have some ramifications that just the wrong data or even those diffs are not rectified.
Okay, I want to dive into what you talked about when you said what type of technology should exist. Then you've also mentioned like teams, so orchestrating teams around this. But let's take the first one of those two things. How do you guys consult or help companies decide if something is more than just a convenience I guess I would say like for a very small group of people. Like, oh, this, yes, I can see what you're saying. This would be a good solution for like this specific use case, or if it actually has growth potential and solves probably a larger industry problem.
Yeah, I mean, there's always kind of two ways to look at it. Like the first is secondary research, right? That's market data, trends, where's everything going? Really what we try to do is drill into primary data. So like, can we get customers to engage with us? And so what we try to do is work with leaders in leadership to carve out those opportunities and then get as real of a prototype or thing in front of them and actually go try to sell those. So a big part of our approach is selling pilots into customers before we go build it. So rather than wasting time on doing all the heavy dev build, the investment, all of those things, we try to say, is there enough here for us to entice someone to act? And I think the big thing that people don't understand is like, you're not going to convince the whole market. Like if you've ever seen those crossing the chasm, there's a market adoption curve where like there's early adopters, there's innovators. That's true if you're building software for your own team. That's true if, in any market, in any kind of population or sample size, you have to find the early adopters and the innovators, people who really want to change. And so by being able to connect with those, you have to be specific, right, around who you're serving. You have to understand the problem enough for you to put a solution that's enticing in front of them, rather than just say, hey, wouldn't it be great if this? We really have to get into who is that, what problems, why, what's the value, and then we can create that prototype and try to, pull them to prove that out at a smaller scale.
I've also observed some things in the last year or so, in that I think it's sometimes difficult to sell technology, specifically in like brokerage or into like asset fleets or logistics providers, if they haven't already identified it as a need.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think we tend to get very comfortable in operational processes. Probably a lot of people do. This is probably not specific to this industry. But I think it can become more challenging to like convince someone to adopt something that they haven't yet really said, okay, this is a pain point or this should be done better. How have you kind of seen that get overcome, I guess I could say?
Yeah. It's very hard to manufacture demand.
Yes.
Right? And so a lot of that, like a big part of our testing process is figuring out the messaging and positioning of that to try and, if you're trying to do a double sell, we call it, you're trying to convince someone they have a problem and you're the solution to that problem, it's very hard. So, just like you would in any marketing, it's like who's, problem unaware, who's problem aware, and the words you use are going to help identify. I think a lot of people will, the all-in-one platform, the all-in-one solution, like nobody's looking for that. They're looking for a very specific pain point. So I would say it's very, if you have enough money, you can manufacture demand, I think, and educate a whole market. But the reality is, like, most people are trying to do things that they're already doing day to day in their work life. They're trying to solve a specific problem, do it faster. Their headcount got cut, so they're trying to do it cheaper. They're trying to automate it. What are the things that reflect reality today? And really, those are where the opportunities are. And I think kind of stacking those together, you can start to create a vision for how you might change an industry, but you have to start where the market's at least in our experience.
Okay, second part of that I wanted to circle back to was teams. So you guys also assist in building teams in some capacity?
Yeah, so a lot of times, we're kind of management consulting plus software like execution.
Okay.
And so identifying those problems and defining out what is the market opportunity, what's the opportunity for the company, savings, revenue, costs, what are all the kind of levers that you pull, and then we build a team to actually go execute against that. So product strategists who are getting feedback from the market, who are selling those pilot programs to early customers, design, engineering, we really build those teams around it. And a lot of times, because we do have like Silicon Valley level talent, it's hard for companies to hire that to go and build their own products.
Sure.
So a lot of times we use that as an entryway for us to build our team, and then over time help them hire and identify the right people through the process, so that they're building a team that has a capability. Because the reality is, everyone likes to think that their team's great, and I love people, but the reality is that you have to be real about your constraints, about your strengths. You can't just establish a team that you have that's, let's say, used to managing your IT and maintaining software, and expect to throw them at a brand new problem that
Sure.
they've never iterated quickly with customers. They're not truly agile. They're running Scrum, but they're not actually adapting to the market as it responds. So as you're doing those pilot programs, as you're doing all that data, they're not used to acting like a startup, essentially, for a lot of teams.
How important is it in the development when you guys are building those and putting those teams together to have at least someone involved in that team who has like some type of experience with what that technology is designed to do?
Yeah, it's critical, right? I think where you get a lot of companies that start, product companies here in logistics, they start new software, new startups, you get into trouble when they assume things. And I think, the reality is that Convoy was one. I was at a conference earlier, and the founder of Convoy was saying, we didn't come from the industry. We had to learn everything. We had to earn it by failing a ton. And so unless you can partner with somebody who either has played that role that you're in or coming from that role, you're most likely going to run out of cash or appetite to continue investing. And so typically a lot of times it's do we have an SME? We call it founder market fit. Like, can you name 5 or 10 of your first customers? Can you call and can you get data from them? And if you don't, it's going to be tough to enter a market. Yeah.
I think that's spot on, though. I really like that. Like, do you know 5 or 10 people who would even be interested in trying this thing? Because what I've seen multiple times is that people, tech companies, I wouldn't name names, but we've had some bigger ones and some smaller, like ones that didn't really take off. And I think it's just because it was a really, honestly, great solution for their business.
Yeah.
But it was really more of like an internal, in-house proprietary solution than it ever should have been a external go-to-market technology solution. And so I think that it's important that we keep in mind that. And that, I think, was also part of the challenge in creating tech for our industry as a whole is how incredibly unique every operation is in our space. I work in the brokerage space. So for example, you have split model brokerages, you have cradle to grave, you have people who specialize in one type of freight versus another, or different industry verticals. Their operations, you have kind of the similar titles from company to company, but they're not doing the same things.
Right.
And their tech doesn't look the same, and the needs of their customers don't look the same. It's just amazing to me how diverse everything is, and how we have to build solutions that somehow still find application within a large enough pool out of our space.
Yeah. So we've seen that through, not just logistics supply chain, but every industry. So I mentioned our parent company. We're doing stuff in fintech, we're doing stuff in healthcare, and serving larger banks like Chase, HSBC, and even within those, and you separate banks from credit unions, so size matters. And between ICP, even though they're still doing lending, you still have to understand how do you build more of a systems approach rather than kind of the one size fits all and think you can sell it to multiple ICPs. I think you're starting to see a lot of the modular approaches of Silicon Valley tech and things start to pop up in logistics supply chain, which is great. And that means that you can basically create a platform play that serves individual ICPs and actually has what they need, but you have to understand it, back to what we talked about with just having an SME or somebody who's familiar with that space.
Would you be comfortable providing kind of like a example, like a recent not use case, but example of like a success story that you guys have had in helping to bring some technology to life or to
Yeah. So one of the recent ones is actually kind of more in e-commerce. So we worked with the founders of Chubbies and Loop to create Good Day OS. And so really what they wanted to do is replace really NetSuite for Shopify store owners. And so they wanted to bring NetSuite ERP level tools for inventory tracking and all of that to the hands of, let's say customers doing less than 10 million in sales, but they serve more than that. And so their team actually, really good founders, Kyle and Dave, they actually went and were, so now they're working with Tacovas, they're working with a ton of big brands, but they had pre-sold it. Right, and so when we were chatting with them, we didn't help them on that initial go-to-market, but we helped them to design and develop the MVP as they're iterating with customers and really, built an agile team around that.
So they actually went and talked to other companies about what they want to do and design, basically sold the idea and the concept and then built.
Yep, and then created, they were using spreadsheets and they were using, just wireframes to communicate the idea, and I think that's really the art of using a visual rather than just describing, is getting something in front of somebody. So when we talk about prototyping, it's like, can we simulate what it might look like so that when we talk about the problem, you understand how it's going to impact your workflow. So they did a great job of that. Absolutely.
Very cool. Well, who should reach out to you? Like, what type of people do you, if someone has an idea, if they're like interested in this, tell me about that. And then how do they get in touch with you?
Yeah, reach out with us. We're at intermode.is. And so you can connect with me on LinkedIn as well. And I would say, anybody who's building product in the space, who's looking for a team that understands, the nomenclature, that understands the processes, and really can bring, the craft of strategy, design, and engineering to that and kind of combine those together can be super powerful. So whether that's, a smaller, let's say, Series A funded startup, or even, a corporate innovation team looking to innovate and bring a new product to market where they don't have a capability around that. They have a lot of ideas. They see a lot of opportunities. They don't have the ability to act on that quite yet.
Well, if you guys are listening to this and it's post-show as we're about to wrap up, you can definitely leave any questions or comments that you guys have in the comment section of the event. Tag myself, tag Andrew. We're happy to jump in and answer those whenever we see those tags come across. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple, or any of our other streaming platforms after the fact, also shoot me an email or connect with Andrew on LinkedIn, ask him any questions, connect with me on LinkedIn. We want to talk more about this. He's obviously pretty passionate about it, and I have more questions that I could easily ask, so I'm sure there's more out there. But thank you everyone so much for joining us live from Manifest, and we appreciate you guys meeting us for coffee.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely.